All right, we're live. Great. So, thank you very much, okay, dear students, for having joined me. I'm not sure if we're going to be the only people here tonight, I guess. That the rest have, I don't know, decided to go out with your friends. Normal, right? So it's Friday. Of course, you know what it said about it, that your body asks you to go out, right? But anyways, we are going to practice together, all right, with our time, because tonight we're going to discuss a very interesting topic. We're actually going to practice it because we yesterday discussed it, at least in a theoretical basis. And the only thing we're going to do tonight is to practice for the writing section, okay? So given that we have just 2 students tonight, we are going to, I'm gonna send right now to the WhatsApp group something, this in a second here, because this is going to be the material we're going to use to practice. So let me just send it. Okay. Oh no, Anai has left. Here. There you are. You can see it, right, Jorge? It's well, there are some links that I have sent to the WhatsApp group. These are Google documents, and well, we're going to use those documents in order to practice. Okay. Here we are. Awesome. Well, Jorge. So as you can see, these are the groups. Well, not the groups, the Google documents we're going to use to practice. What I did with the last group that I was commenting you about was that as they were a lot of people, almost 20, I divided them into groups in order to practice this. But as you and I apparently are going to be the only ones here, we are going to practice alone. Okay, that is to say, you're going to write down an essay for me, and you're going to have your complete 20 minutes in order to write it down. Let me just send one more message to the group if they're going to come back. All right, let's see what they say. Great. Well, as we do that, dear Jorge, I'm going to send to the WhatsApp group reading passage, okay? And this reading passage will be the first material we're going to be analyzing before we start with our essays, okay? So let me send it to the WhatsApp group, and there you're going to read it. All right, there you are. Well, dear Jorge, fantastic. One surprise, nobody else is going to join us apparently. What a weird thing, right? Well, okay, Jorge, so I don't want to, of course, unappreciate your time. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes in order to read this passage, okay? So here you have 3 minutes on the clock. And please read the passage that I have just sent to the WhatsApp group. And then we're going to listen to the lecture on the same topic. All right, Jorge? So please start reading now. Okay, there you are, dear Jorge. Fantastic. So now that you have read this passage, let us listen to the lecture on the same topic of globalization. Okay, so let's start, please. Don't forget to take your notes. Very important for you to write down certain details and points made in the lecture later on in your essay. Okay, let's start.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
Globalization is a pretty hot topic, right? And for good reason. It's contentious, not the kind of thing everybody agrees about. It's hard to say that globalization is necessarily a good thing. There are a number of ills that have come hand in hand with the changes we've seen. First, I want to stress the danger of reliance on the global market. It may help keep competition healthy, sure, but when countries are so economically interconnected, crashes and recessions cause a wave of problems, and in more than just the country where it starts. Take the 2008 financial crisis, for instance, which was set off by problems in the U.S., but it spiraled out to a number of countries in Europe and elsewhere too. And of course, the second thing I should bring up is one you may have thought more about, something a little closer to home. When we send work offshore to other countries that can produce or just work for cheaper, then we no longer have those jobs in our own country. For example, most TVs sold in the U.S. were used to be made here, but nowadays, well, we buy them all over from other countries. When the U.S. opened trade with Mexico, our TV manufacturers closed their U.S. plants and moved to Mexico, where they could find cheaper labor. What happened to the workers at those U.S. plants? Many had to be laid off. And finally, as for the environmental benefits, well, that's a bit suspect. After all, have we seen our environmental problems go away as the global economy has grown? Far from it. These countries that can manufacture cheaply and export goods, they create astronomical air pollution. Global trade encourages cheap production, and cheap production is often environmentally harmful.
Summarize the points made in the lecture you just heard, explaining how they cast doubt on points made in the reading.
There you are. Okay, Jorge. Well, now you have listened to this lecture, right? Well, so please, dear Jorge, look at the WhatsApp group, and there you're gonna find a Google document. Well, it's a link, right, to a Google document that says first. Please get into this Google document, and when you open it, okay, in your computer, you're going to see these pages. Scroll down until the end, and I'm going to separate here a new page for you. And in this new page, you're going to write down your essay, okay? You have your 20 minutes in order to do so. And at the end, I'm going to review your essay. And of course, I'm going to give you some feedback, all right? So here you're going to be able to see your 20 minutes and to program them for you. And if at some point you have questions or any hesitation or doubt, please tell me, all right? So do you have any question right now, dear Jorge, about what you have to do? It's clear. Right, fantastic. So please, dear Jorge, start writing down your essay now. By the way, you can always consult the reading passage, okay? Remember, this is always available for you during the entire essay, okay? So you can just read this as many times as you want.
Do you know how can I check how many words I have
Here
here? Yeah, I don't.
in the Google document.
Yeah, I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how.
I think you're not able here. You have to paste it to word
Okay.
counter. You can look for this page. It's word counter.
Okay.
.net. I'm gonna send it to the WhatsApp group.
Word count.
There you are. It's in the WhatsApp group, dear Jorge.
I think I finished, and I don't know, like the mistakes that are there are. I know there are some mistakes because my computer is like, I don't. It automatically shows them, but
All right. Okay. Well,
so
so
if I change them, it wouldn't be like that's how I do it
yes.
in the
So
TOEFL exam.
yes, you wouldn't like to use the rest of your 4 minutes to add something? You would like to stop here? Because you still have like 4 minutes to add something if you want, or to check it out one more time. Jorge, can you listen to me?
Yeah, now I can.
Fantastic. So I was mentioning, would you like to stop here, or maybe you could use the rest of your time to check it out one more time, or to write something else?
So I think I stop here because I want to see the correction of my actual mistakes.
All right. Well, fantastic. So let's stop here then, and let's see what you have done. Well, let's start your forehead. All right. Well, it says the reading extra leads off with the benefits of a globalized economy and how modern transportation and electronic communication has made relationships between consumers and providers around the world more efficient. Good. Nonetheless, so for example here, nonetheless, remember that connectors, when you write down connectors, the way you have to write them down is this way. You did pretty well here in this case because connectors are always after a period. In this case, you preceded your connector with a period. Fantastic. You have to use it with a capital letter, and right after the connector, you have to put a comma. This is how you write down any connector. Nonetheless, farther, likewise, furthermore, moreover, therefore, any connector is always written following those steps. Preceded by a period, capital letter, and before a comma. Okay? Very good. Nonetheless, in the lecture, we are informed of the many disadvantages of a globalized economy. Fantastic. So here, the introduction is fantastic. I think it's wonderful. It's very well summarized in introduction and mentioning, as I told you, a very, very general and concise commentary on the reading and also the listening. Now here, the only thing that I would add would be the transition phrases I told you. Oh, here it is. Something like, I will, let's say, analyze, right? Both perspectives a little bit farther. Something like that. Okay. No, I think that's it's better. So yeah, I will analyze both perspectives. Yeah, a little bit further. Okay. This is a transition phrase, remember? And basically, this is with C. Why did I write it with S? I will analyze both perspectives a little bit further. So this is the transition phrase that I would recommend you to use. But nonetheless, you can change the wording if you want, okay? Apart from that, so for example, notice here your paragraph starting the body of your essay didn't have any space, right? Of separation from the introduction. So my recommendation is try to give it at least one space, right? So for example, here in this case, firstly, is a connector, once again. So how do we write connectors? In this case, of course, there is no need to have a period before the connector because we are using it as the first word, right? So a capital letter, firstly, and comma, right? Always before a comma. Firstly, in the reading passage, it's claimed. So something that I would recommend you very much, dear Jorge, is that when you're writing these essays, okay, for the writing section of the TOEFL exam, try to avoid contractions for two different reasons. First of all, remember that you're trying to look for 150 words as a minimum. And if you can write down more, fantastic. So avoiding contractions and writing full sentences like it is claimed, by doing that very, very basic and concise exercise of avoiding contractions, trust me that you're going to sum up for you at least 20 or 15 words. And I think that is very much beneficial when you are trying to look for an essay that contains more than 150 words, okay? And secondly, because when you have these essays, you're trying to write down as formal as you can. And formal writing, of course, implies avoiding contractions, of course, right? So my recommendation would be try to follow this, okay? Avoiding contractions and writing full sentences. So first, in the reading passage, it is claimed that competition between different nations can lead to cheaper and better quality goods for everyone around the world. Nonetheless, so here, for example, you have another of these connectors. Nonetheless, so remember, preceding, you have a period, okay? Capital letter and place before a comma. Nonetheless, in the listening passage, we are presented with the evidence that although cheaper products are available for everyone, so okay, here you will need to have a comma. So are economic prices available for every country in the world, like the 2008 crisis in the United States that became a global phenomenon. Well, it became a global phenomenon. Well, I think it's acceptable. Very good. Very good. Fantastic. So again, this will be your first paragraph, and I think that it's great. So try to always give a separation, okay, to every single paragraph. This will be your paragraph for the introduction, and this will be your first body paragraph. So try to separate these paragraphs between each other by giving them one space. Some people like to do actually this exercise to use 2 spaces, and some of them actually like to use tab and to send this let's say to this part of the document. I think that is completely optional. Nonetheless, well, you can just say one space and that's it. Secondly, again, this will be another connector. Secondly, with capital letter, here you use the comma. Very good. It is pointed out. Okay, so fantastic. You here use the you avoid contractions. You avoid the contractions. In the reading passage, that developing nations can use their low cost of living as an advantage to encourage international workers to help and develop the economy. However, so for example, this is another connector, and remember, capital letter M, right after a period, M always preceded, or excuse me, always before a comma. The listening passage claims that as a consequence, developed nations are losing economical advantage in the production of goods, televisions, or cars. They have to import everything. So for example, here, I think that in this sentence, it would have been a fantastic device to use semicolon instead of comma. Why? Because this sentence, if you think about it, stands by itself as an independent sentence, right? They have to import everything. And semicolons, you use them whenever you want to separate 2 expressions that, although have some sort of connection between each other, can stand by themselves as separate sentences, as these examples are. For example, here, this is a separate sentence, and this is another separate sentence. And both of them can stand by themselves as complete and independent sentences. But as you want to, of course, unify them, the way you do it is by semicolon instead of comma, right? But fantastic. And here, again, one space. Lastly, right, here, comma, lastly, in the reading passage, it is stated that global cooperation improves the level of responsibility every country has in the environmental impact industries have worldwide. Fantastic. On the other hand, here, this is another connector, by the way. Even when it is a phrase, let's say, it still represents a connector. On the other hand, here, comma, as developing countries are forced to produce massively and cheaply, there's no possible way they can also keep an eye on the environmental impacts their industries have. Here, for example, again, because these are separate sentences, right? They can remain by themselves as independent sentences that do not depend on each other. You can separate them by a semicolon, but anyways, having that connection between them, right? Because they are united somehow, but not grammatically. And how can you express that? But by semicolons. They are forced by globalization to pollute. There you go. With 2 L's here. Well, so how many rows you wrote? Let me see. Let me see. You wrote 250 words. Fantastic. I think this is a very, very good essay. And following those recommendations, very little recommendations that I gave you, I think that this would be certainly a high score essay. Any commentary on this essay, dear Jorge?
No, I think it's pretty clear. I just have to work on the connectors, I think.
Yeah, certainly connectors. Well, fantastic. So as we have more time, let us do something, okay? What we're going to do right now is we're going to read another passage, and we're going to listen another lecture. And I'm going to give you that essay for you to write it at home, okay? You're going to have that little homework. And you're going to use it to practice, okay? And you're going to send it to me. And tomorrow, okay, I'm gonna send to you an audio telling you my observations and feedback, okay, with regard to the second essay you're going to write out. All right, that's what we're gonna do. Is that fine for you?
Yeah, it's fine.
Fantastic. So let us read another passage together. And let us listen to another lecture before we finalize. Let me get into this. Here we are. Give me a second. Where am I? Yeah. All right. So let's get into another passage. Okay, so this is going to be our passage. Okay, here you have it. In the 18th century. Okay. So please read it. You have 3 minutes to do so. All right, there you are. All right. Great, our time's over. Now please your forehead. Let's get into the lecture, okay? On Rococo style. Let's see.
Now listen to a lecture on the topic you just read about.
Your textbook provides a rather one-sided account of Rococo art, dismissing it as an uninspired movement and suggesting that its aristocratic focus, shallow subject matter, and over-ornamentation have led critics to look down on the style. Now, it's definitely true that Rococo art has faced a lot of criticism over the years, but at the same time, I want to argue today that the textbook's dismissal is a bit overstated. It's definitely true that much Rococo art, like the Palace of Versailles in France and its luxurious interiors, for example, it's true that a lot of Rococo artists worked for aristocratic patrons, but that's not unique to Rococo. I mean, the vast majority of world art before the modern era was created for wealthy audiences. And at the same time, a lot of great Rococo work was done in places like churches, which were meeting places for all elements of society. Those churches didn't just serve aristocrats. And as for the idea that Rococo art is superficial, well, that also seems somewhat misguided to me. Paintings of things like scenes of aristocratic picnics, they're often surprisingly sophisticated. For example, Fragonard's painting The Swing, a painting of two men pushing a young woman on a swing, is very subtle. The relationships between all three people in it are beautifully suggested by these tiny details in their facial expressions and postures. This wasn't shallow or frivolous work at all. Rococo artists, actually explored their subjects with real sensitivity and sophistication. And they also created amazing works of art. The idea that they used too much ornamentation is just, well, an opinion. Today, art often emphasizes simplicity, but there's also something to be said for more elaborate techniques. Rococo artists were pioneers in a way. They experimented with color, asymmetrical surfaces, and mixed media to create paintings that still impress viewers centuries later.
There you are. Okay, dear Jorge. So we're going to stop here, but please write for me an essay following these topics, and I am going to be delighted to read it and to give you some feedback. All right, dear Jorge?
Okay.
Great, my pleasure. So let us stop here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And please help me with the poll that we always fill, all right? As I take your assistance in here. And you can write it, by the way, the essay. You can write it in any other documents. Don't write it here in the Google document that I sent you, because I'm going to have another class right now, and probably somebody else is going to erase it. So this new essay you're going to write down for me, write it in a Word document and send it to me, all right?
I send it through WhatsApp.
Yeah, well, it's WhatsApp, okay? It's fine. It's totally fine.
Okay.
Here. Yeah, a second. Okay, so we have Benitez Jorge Alberto, right?
Yes.
There you are, dear Jorge. Thank you very much for having come. You are the only one. Thank you very much, Jorge. Well, any question? Anything about your activities to do?
No, it's clear.
All right, great. So I'm going to be seeing you next week, and please don't hesitate to send the essay to me, all right? Whenever you have time, and I'm going to be reviewing it, all right, dear Jorge?
Okay, bye. See you
Thank you
next
very
week.
much.